Hello, friends, and we are live on the after the game Dodger Beats show here. I I'm I'm still trying to digest what the hell just happened, and I am dead inside at the same time. So I know. I mean, you and I, all three of us, Roger in the sky, the voice in the sky, and your boys Alonso and Juan here. Juan, I'm kind of curious to get a sense of how you're feeling right now.
I just want to let everybody know who's watching tonight that you're not going to get any professional baseball breakdown. Tonight, I think I'm going to allow myself to go full blown emotional because that was the most Dodger thing that this Dodger team has ever Dodgered in their life. Okay. Now, I lived through the trauma of 1985 and Tom Niedenfuhr, but tonight, for the way they lost, to lose on an air like that is just look, I feel sorry for the Dodger fans because the Dodger fans deserve better. Okay, the Dodger fans constantly get their hearts broken by this team, and they don't deserve that. And I know for all of you fans out there, oh, you're not a real fan. You need to cheer up. You need to give up. Look, the Dodgers can come back and win this series. Okay, and they maybe will. All right. But if the Dodgers don't win this series, guess what? Everybody's going to point at this freaking game.
No, you're right. You know, and it's funny. I saw a tweet a second ago. I don't remember who tweeted it. At this point, this is, and you know what? As you said, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of baseball analysis. This is probably more of a PG-13 type of show tonight, just because of the upsetness. But what the hell, as far as the curse of Bambino type stuff, like, is going on here? It's one of those things where what's weird about it too is, and we said it before we went on air, the one dude who I never would have expected an error, let alone a walk-off error, is Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor is one of the best defensive players in the game and on this team. And I saw someone say something to the effect of, like, why isn't Kenley covering home plate? And it's one of those things where, first of all, he's a closer. His natural instinct is to not cover home plate, especially in that situation when you have a cutoff man that's there. And two, the thing that I've always been terrified with closers, not just Kenley, just closers. I'm not a fan of closers pitching from the stretch. I'm not a fan of it, and it is what it is. I mean, in that situation, we've talked about it with Randy Arozarena. Does he get the Barry Bonds treatment? At this point, I think he does, just because he's that good. But the bummer of that situation is, if you put him on, that's the winning run, and rightfully so. It ended up happening that way, and here we are, right? And and really, you can't even put this on Kenley either. It's just a total systematic failure by the Dodgers as far as that goes. And what I'm nervous about, if I'm frank with you, is the way that they're going to look at it tomorrow is not a 2-2 series, is looking at it that they're down 3-2 going into tomorrow with Kershaw going, and that terrifies me, if I'm honest with you.
But that's the way they should look at it. Because this team, I'm convinced they are cursed. Now, what is the curse? Is the curse because McCourt still owns the part of the parking lots? Like, I want to know, what is the curse? I want to know, why is it that these guys pucker up every single time in the most important moments in a baseball season? These guys are too good. Why does this happen to this team? That's what I want to know. And I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and put it on Chris Taylor. I'm not going to sit here and put it on Will Smith. They lost as a team, okay? And that includes Dave Roberts. The fact that Roberts was so quick to give Julio Urias the hook, but yet let Baez just go up there and just continue to. The guy was put in there because his changeup plays so well against lefties. Why is he throwing fastballs? I mean, you're absolutely right. It is a complete failure. The mistakes, I cannot understand. Why is it that other teams just seem to be mentally stronger than the Dodgers?
And I mean, the thing is, and you have to give credit to the Rays. When you kind of go back and look at everything too throughout, Bellinger had that error, if you will, made the mental mistake on getting caught up on that play when he was trying to run a third. those little things like that you kind of remember as you go through. But I mean, as far as, kind of from top to bottom, they for sure left Baez in too long. They left him in too long. There's no other way to put it. The amount of pitches that he had, I think he had like 26 pitches, 27, something like that. And he didn't even have great ratios, if you will, with his usage on the changeup. It's one of those things where it's like, it's just head scratching. There's just no other way to put it. It's frustrating. It's head scratching. And it's the World Series. Like, if you're making these mistakes in a 3-game series against the Colorado Rockies or whatever in a regular season, that's one thing. But it's the World Series. And you have the opportunity to go up 3-1 with again, the opportunity and the storyline opportunity, if that too, to go out and win it tomorrow with your horse going. It's just I'm just at a loss for words. Like, I just can't, I can't, and I'm not stoked with Will Smith's game calling tonight. That's one thing that he's been pretty good as far as this series goes with calling the game. And yesterday, them putting in Austin and using him the way that they did, he called a great game. I was kind of expecting them again to do the same thing. But then I also remembered, oh, that's right, Kershaw's going. They don't want him to do 3 games in a row. Okay, that makes perfect sense. But the pitch calling too, the game that he called was garbage. So I mean, it's just all around. It's just from top to bottom, just wasn't a good outcome for this team. I'm kind of curious though. When we were going into that inning, obviously this is not what anyone expected as far as how he was going to end. How did you feel about Kenley going in that situation?
Oh, I knew it was going to happen. I just didn't know. To your what you're saying, I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't expect that we were going to lose on an error. I thought he would give up a bomb. I mean, I told my friends. I said, we're getting Niedenfuhr tonight. You just felt the way this game reminded me a lot of that Game 5 in the 2017 World Series, that crazy game where they were going back and forth. I mean, the problem is it is so obvious that Roberts doesn't trust anybody in that bullpen. And perhaps that bullpen doesn't give him any reason to trust them. But, it's just obvious. That's why he left Baez there so long. And what's so crazy is the guys that I thought were going to blow it actually pitched well. Kolarek pitched well. And here's the thing. Brusdar Graterol felt sore the next day. So it seems like they really stay away from him going in back-to-back games. But the minute Jansen came in that game, the Jaws theme was playing in my head. I knew the shark was in the water. I didn't know when the shark was going to come out and eat me. And guess what? It came out and it just, oh my God, I'm sorry. I know I'm probably taking this too hard, but here's the thing, man. It's just, I don't understand what we did to upset the baseball gods. I really don't know. It just seems every single time the Dodgers find a new way to lose, and it's getting old.
And to me, this was the worst one. And this is one of the worst ways to lose. On a walk-off error, essentially, is what it is, right? And it's on top of that, granted, Phillips hit a ball that no one was going to get to. All you can do there is tip your cap, right? There's not a whole lot you can do there. Chris Taylor can't do that. Chris Taylor shouldn't do that. Chris Taylor is too good to do that. And then you get into the situation where they get into, the thing that everyone that's ever played baseball and has been taught fundamentally to do since you're 4 years old, you throw to the cutoff man, right? And they did that. Max Muncy, saw him fall, and he still didn't give Will that great of a throw. It should have been on the glove, right? Yeah. And here we are. And so it's the other caveat is it's just the fundamentals of just the breakdown. I can't believe it. I'm surprised. I'm unbelievably shocked, if I'm honest with you, that's how it ended. And to your point too, when I saw Kenley come in, I was like, he's going to give up a home run.
Yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen.
And I would have rather they lost on a home run than that way, right? Because This way it's even. Not only does it add insult to injury, because again, everyone has touted Chris Taylor's defensiveness, and I'm not putting this on him, but that's where it all the dominoes began to fall, and it's just, and I'm sure right now he feels like absolute garbage in that clubhouse, and rightfully so, because again, they knew what was at stake. Because now the other issue is you're giving the Rays the wiggle room to get back into the series.
Yeah.
And you're now, again, you talked about it last night, even though I hadn't joined, that they had set it up perfectly with this lineup as far as the pitching goes. But now it's also going in the Rays' favor because they're going to get their horses back in there. Today, even though Yarbrough, we talked about this, was another guy that would normally go in the game 4 situation as kind of a fourth starter. Now you're going to get back into the rotation. It didn't have to be that way. We didn't have to. We predicted this to be a long series, but the way that it was going, I don't know if they got complacent. I don't know. Out there, obviously stuff happens, but I mean, it's just unacceptable. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. It's unacceptable. And Dave Roberts made some mistakes that definitely shouldn't have been made as well on the managerial side. But as far as the players go, it's unacceptable. There's just no other way to put it. And if you're joining us, it was terrible. Dodgers lose 7-8. Series is tied 2-2. The World Series. Again, we also put in, we'd also predicted that this series was going to have close games. Obviously, this was a close game, but we did not predict that anything like this would have happened whatsoever. There's no other way to put it. I'm flabbergasted. I've never seen anything like that in all of my years, playing baseball and working in baseball and watching a lot of baseball. And again, especially from this defensive caliber of a team, I'm totally blown away.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I mean, here's the thing. It's just right now, if you're the Dodgers, I don't know how you don't look at this series as you're down 3-2. Because I'm with you. I don't want to see them lose, but hitting a home run, at least you got beat. What are you going to do? You got beat. But the way they lost this game today, it felt like they beat themselves. Not only today, and I get it. I mean, this whole 2-out scoring thing is just insane, that they've been doing throughout they scored with 2 outs in today's game, 6 different innings, right? So it's like, okay, it's hard for me to criticize them that when they have runners in scoring position and they don't score, well, that's going to end up, costing them the game because guess what? What is becoming perfectly clear is they have to score as many runs as they can because no lead is safe against a team that is struggling to hit. And that is that's hard for me to wrap my head. I mean, maybe I'm listening to the talking heads and I'm believing them when they tell me that this Rays team can't hit. Well, they scored 8 runs today. They scored 6 runs in game 2. If that's a team that can't hit, why are they scoring so many runs? It's just it is feeling like this franchise, this team is snake bit, and I just don't understand why.
It's Piazza. It's the ghost of Mike Piazza.
Is it the curse of? Is it the Piazza trade?
I'm trying to look back on stuff that everything could be having the curse of Bambino effect on this franchise. Piazza comes to mind. Fuhrer, is another situation that comes to mind. There's just it's one of those things where, and granted, the other frustrating thing that like you hate to see, Mookie Betts didn't get a hit.
Yeah.
He's had defensively, obviously he's had a great postseason. Offensively, it's been kind of hot, hit or miss. Max Muncy had the 1 hit and the 1 RBI. Bellinger, granted, he's got some sort of a back ailment that's still concerning. No hits. It's one of those things where where the talking heads drop all these stats, but to me, like I've said before on here, those stats don't mean a damn thing because in the postseason, you either come to play or you don't. And the Rays have come to play, and they showed it tonight because, it was essentially the team that made the lesser of the mistakes that won. That's just kind of what it came down to in this game. And the Dodgers obviously made the fatal mistake of bobbling the ball, if you will, and making bad fundamental throws to the, from the cutoff man over to the plate. And here we are, and even at that, the Rays themselves, Randy Arozarena had himself a day. Kiermaier had himself a day. The usual suspects have been going out and doing the thing. But also, when you look down at everything, Brandon Lau has had a series, and they haven't been able to contain that dude. And it's one of those things where that sort of stuff's going to come back and bite you in the ass. And look what happened. They weren't able to contain Arozarena in that situation. He got on, and here it is. And again, and for baseball fundamentals, when you go out in that situation, especially again with a guy like Kenley who is not comfortable pitching from the stretch. I can't stress that enough. Not only is he not comfortable pitching from the stretch, he also is not comfortable with pitching with guys on because he's a closer. He's accustomed to their just having clear bases and not having to worry about, hey, do I need to remind this dude on first that he's still there? You see how uncomfortable he is throwing to first, and especially in that moment where the game is on the line. And the irony is, this is really the first time that we had seen him go out there and face the top of the lineup with the game on the line throughout the postseason, aside from that first series, right? But like we're talking, these games that have counted since we beat that bullpen, and I'm still surprised, if I'm honest with you, that they pulled Gratterall. I'm shocked, because we had 9 pitches, I think is what I saw. Yeah, 9 pitches. On 9 pitches, he threw 5 of them for strikes, and here we are. And I'm confused with the managerial tactics of Dave Roberts. I don't think the curse is coming from Dave Roberts. I keep saying that on Twitter and stuff. I don't think that's it. I honestly think. I don't know what I think as far as where the curse is coming from, because I mean there's so much that I don't know. I honestly just don't know.
Look, I mean, and here's the thing, and we've talked about it on this show, and that is we can't just put all the blame on Dave Roberts, but the manager's job is to put the players in a position to win. Now, a couple of things. 7 runs should be enough runs to win a game, especially with the pitching staff that you're supposed to have, right? We didn't do that. But it just seemed from the beginning to me that Roberts was not managing this game to win. I mean, Cash was out there. Man, I mean, some of the things that he was doing, I was head scratching, using his closer as early as he did, using his high leverage. I mean, there was a point where I texted my buddy saying, who do the Rays have left in the bullpen? But what you saw there was a manager that was doing everything to try to win that game, because he knows if he goes down 3-1 to this team, it's going to be an uphill battle. But what I felt like Roberts was managing with, well, I still have game 5 and I have game 6, 7, and I get a game 6 and 7. And it's just like that kind of attitude comes back and bites you in the ass. And that's why you lose a game. Okay. Because now the Dodgers are in trouble, because once again, now Clayton Kershaw has to go out there and pitch the game of his life, because the Dodgers again put him in a position. And not only that, okay, let's say the Dodgers find a way to win tomorrow. Now in game 6, you have the same nightmare scenario that you have in game 2, where you have to now turn to Gonsolin or Dustin May to get you through that game, when they've already shown you they don't have it. They don't have it. And then if you have if you're lucky enough to get to a game 7 now, you're going to bring Buehler back on short rest. Now, I'm not going to bet against Buehler, especially because Buehler, to me, is the best game pitcher the Dodgers have had since Oral Hershiser. But it's asking a lot for a guy who's dealing with blisters to come back on short rest with a team that obviously something happens to them in their head. And I hope they prove me wrong. There is nothing more that I want than to be wrong about everything that I'm saying tonight, because I want the Dodgers to win. But tonight is a therapy night. Tonight is a night to vent, because the Dodger fans, again, did not deserve what their team did to them tonight.
Let me tell you what's infuriating, too. Walker Buehler goes out and throws the game of his life last night. Can't ask anything more from a guy that isn't, Oral Hershiser, like you said, that isn't Roger Clemens, of those storied Yankees teams. Asterisks aside with that dude, Curt Schilling. Those are the lore of legends as far as where Walker Buehler was going, right? To come out and lay an egg tonight, and then now literally having to put the burden of an entire franchise that's potentially cursed on the best pitcher of this generation, bar none, to go out and have to pitch essentially a perfect game. In my opinion, that's worst case scenario, just because we've seen what that essentially has done to Clayton in the past. And not to say that he's not going to come out and show up tomorrow, but And for all we know, he might, right? But I mean, the thing that's unfair to him, and even my wife has said this, and my wife, who's not a sports fan, that's not fair to Clayton.
It's
It's
not.
never been fair to Clayton to do that. But she, for someone like that who's an outsider of the game to understand the unfairness and the undue amount of pressure that's going to be on Clayton tomorrow, it's unenviable, right? But at the same time, it's also incredibly unfair because if they go out and win, whether it's by a run or two, whatever, they still are up 3-1. That's all that matters. And now they're in a situation where it's going to feel like they're in a deficit, and then Clayton has to pitch that game of his life tomorrow, and it's just simply unfair. Because again, you talked about it. You made a point of it in my absence yesterday that if all goes as planned, this ideally works out for the Dodgers as far as how the stars align pitching. I'm nervous about Gonsolin and May throwing in another game. I'm incredibly nervous about that. And it's, in my opinion, it's still not their fault yet per se, because they just don't have the experience. They're young guys. That is what it is, right? But to have to force the hand to use a Walker Buehler on short rest with, again, everyone kept saying the blister isn't an issue. On short rest, it's going to be a damn issue because that dude went out and threw 95 pitches last night, I think it was 90, 89, something like that.
Yeah.
And
93. He threw 93.
93. That's a lot of undue stress on those blisters too, without regular rest. So I mean, that's who I feel the worst for right now is going into tomorrow's Clayton Kershaw. And then back to your point about the managers, the only way to explain it is Kevin Cash went out to play aggressively. He didn't go out there with banking on tomorrow or the day after. Kevin Cash went out there and essentially said there may not be a tomorrow, so we're going to go out there and we're going to bang with these guys. We may not have the same rosters. We may not have whatever the talking heads are saying, but this is where it's at. And all you can do is tip your cap to him because he went out and did what you're supposed to do in the World Series, and that's be aggressive. And that's another issue that the Dodgers have ran into is I feel like when they get up to a certain level of a lead, if you will, they just get complacent, and this is proof of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing. Like tonight's game, and I've had a lot of friends, but tonight's game is one of the games where people ask me, why am I a Dodger fan? Look, I love the Dodgers. I'm always going to root for the Dodgers no matter how much they torture me, no matter how much they break my heart. I'm going to root for them, okay? But here's the thing. If I'm critical of them, it's because they are my team, okay? And I need to have an outlet because I care, okay? Because I know I'm going to hear it a lot, especially you're going to hear it from the Dave Vasseys, the Alana Rizzos of the world. Hey, this team came back from 3-1. That they can win. Why are you giving up on your team? It's not about giving up on your team. It's about holding your team accountable. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I just didn't see what happened right now. Okay? And that's the thing. It's like, I get it. The players have to shake it off and because they got to play a game tomorrow. And I am curious to see how they react. Because what if Glasnow pitches tomorrow and he starts mowing everybody down again? Or what if it is another tight game and you already know what Jansen did? I mean, it's obvious. They don't trust anybody in that bullpen. So what are you going to do? You're going to have another game where things changed from game to game in this series. And this is something that I mentioned in the show last night. You want to finish a series as early as possible because you don't know what can happen. Injuries can pop up their head. Can pop out of nowhere. Bellinger's back. We don't know how bad it is. Some of the swings today, he was swinging out of his helmet, so it looked like his back was fine. But, somebody tweaks a hamstring, Justin Turner tweaks a hamstring, or Corey Seager goes down. Then what are you going to do? Or what if Kershaw's back gives up and you got to go to the bullpen early tomorrow? That's why opportunities like tonight you cannot waste, and it is beyond frustrating. And as I said, tonight's show is not about objective analysis about, what happened in the game. Tonight's show to me is strictly about allowing Dodger fans to vent because this was just the biggest kick in the nuts I think that any Dodger fan has taken.
And for those of you joining us, Dodgers fall 7-8 to the Rays on a walk-off, I suspect, error. I mean, I know they gave Chris the error. I guess that's the only way to call it because, I mean, it is technically a walk-off hit. However, the error, be that as it may, semantics don't matter because the Dodgers fall and they tie the series. The Rays tie the series 2-2. If you're joining us, please chime in on Twitter and the comments on the live stream. Like Juan said, it's a therapy session. It's pain, and it's the thing is too is I'm kind of curious to see what Dave Roberts is going to say in the post game conference tonight, because I get that he wants to be the Zen master, and I understand that. I get why he wants to do it with this collective group of guys, but at the same time, he has kind of this go-to of oh well, this is why my guy is Kenley. This is why he's going to stay and be considered for these situations. This is why that. I hope that's not what he comes out and says, and just says essentially like, yo, we blew it and we have to be better, because he was obviously frustrated at the end there. But, some of the culpability is going to be on him because of some of the decisions he made, right? Keeping Baez out too long. Pulling Gratterall, I think, is something that has to be, I feel like, a little more scrutinized, because granted, he did, you did say, he came out and looking a little sore, but I feel like it's the World Series and you have to ride the hot hand and manage by feel. And we talked about this, right? That the Dodgers tend to focus on the analytics of it instead of, the feel of the game. And I feel like that's a part of the reason that move happened. And I'm not a fan of that, because Brusdar has shown and he's proven that when he's on, and you just got to ride that hot hand until you can't. And it's kind of like in football. Sometimes you just got to run the damn football. And that's what they should have done in that situation with Brusdar. They should have just kept him out there. And it's high leverage, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a close game. Kenley's been shaky. And if Brusdar is feeling good and throwing good, keep him in there. But the Baez staying in thing, I don't get it. For the life of me, I don't get it, in part because there was just mainly fastballs. And, those two home runs were fastballs. They were both fastballs. So I just – and the other thing is granted, I predicted this in 6. And if the numbers were to stay the way they are, the Dodgers would win in 6. But this, to me, is a more defeating way to lose in order to get to 6 and to 7, and in defeating in a way for morale where it's like, what are we doing? Because some of these guys just barely started getting back in their minds like, I'm too good to be in a slump. And the dude that I'm afraid that is going to stay that way for the remainder of the series is Cody Bellinger, just because he doesn't want to hurt his back, doesn't want to do whatever. And we all know how good Cody is. And, if he's playing with the hurt back and he's out there trying to grind through it, all the props in the world to him. But at the same time, I can't remember what the stat was. It was something like 2 for 12 or something like that in the World Series, 2 for 16, 2 for 14, something like that. If you're going to win, that's the sort of stuff you can't see. JT is getting it going. I had said the other night that JT was going to have to be a factor in the series, and here we are. He's turning into a factor. But again, it's like I said a minute ago. They had all these phenomenal things happen with Walker Buehler. JT's starting to get it going. Corey Seager's doing the thing. They're doing the small ball, right? Kike is getting some clutch hits, doing the thing. And then they're just literally throwing it away, giving it away.
Yeah,
and then now unduly putting all the pressure on Clayton Kershaw. And none of that had to happen. None of it.
Well, look, you said it, right? Jansen doesn't like pitching with runners on base, right? So the thing is why didn't they take Gratterall? Why didn't they put Gratterall in the 9th? Okay, let's say you put Gratterall in the 9th, and then if he gets into trouble, you bring in Jansen, right? Well, you can't bring in Jansen with runners on base because he doesn't like pitching with runners on base. So if that's the case, then why are you even bringing Jansen at all in the 9th inning, right? It just seems every year, stop me if you've heard this one, the biggest criticism for Roberts is that he stays too long with a guy, right? And every year, doesn't it seem, even though we have these young studs, these guys who are pitching really well, every year it seems that Baez is the guy that Dodger fans are pointing the finger to because he's the one that gave up a big hit. He's the one who gave up a big home run. I would love to hear Robert's explanation as to why he chose. I can't tell you the number of messages I received saying, why is he still in the game? Why is Baez still out there? And you know who I feel horrible for? Is Julio Urias. I mean, Julio Urias, First of all, they take him out with 1 out away from him getting the victory, which he wouldn't have gotten anyways. But look, I mean, look at this pitching line. Okay, he gave up 4 hits. He only gave up 2 runs. They happen to be 2 home run balls, which is very, very disturbing because the home run ball just killed the Dodgers tonight. It seemed like the Dodgers pitchers were just, it was a launching pad, and maybe it was because the roof was open, but the home run ball hurt the Dodgers today. But Urias had 9 Ks. 9 Ks and not even 5 innings of work. It just seemed what the Rays, I got to give credit to the Rays bullpen, because the Rays bullpen did, for the most part, limit the damage. Those innings where the Dodgers had a lot of runners on base, they ended that inning with the Dodgers only scoring 1 run. Here, that 3-run home run, that was brutal. The home run that Baez gave up to Lau was just brutal. And then, for the most part, they had scored all their runs on home runs until that 9th inning. The 9th inning was the only time they were able to manufacture runs. And then what are you going to do? You're right. Can you blame Jansen for it? It seems, we've talked about this with, Roger always says it. It always seems to start with a little fluky hit. That little bloop that Kike almost got to, but it falls through. And then the thing that kills you every single time, bases on balls. Now, yeah, I probably would have walked Randy in that situation anyways and made someone else to beat you. But this was supposed to be a good bullpen. You score 7 runs. This should not be happening.
The only other way to put it is it's unacceptable. And the reason that I say it's unacceptable is you essentially get a gem from Julio, and they had a really quick hook on him. I don't get that either. I don't get the quick hook in that situation because, granted, you could tell he was getting a little gas, but I think a lot of it was also the adrenaline is wearing off. Anyone that doesn't believe that these guys are going out there and pitching with adrenaline is dumb. There's just no other way to put it. These dudes are going out there and pitching on adrenaline. They banged up Yarbrough, and they got to that bullpen early. And that bullpen, like you said, to their credit, they were able to contain these Dodgers for the most part, right? But I mean, the thing is too is that the Rays capitalized on those Dodger mistakes. And how often during this, during the last few shows have we talked about that if the Dodgers make mistakes and the other team capitalizes, but the Dodgers don't counter, we're gonna be here, right? That's not even a Tim McCarver take, because I mean the worst mistake that you could have made is exactly how this game ended, because no one in their right mind predicted that. No one. And again, when you explain baseball fundamentals to anyone, and anyone that knows anything about this damn game, that if anything, that's the most deflating way to lose, especially in a World Series. If you're gonna beat me with a walk-off home run. Beat me with the walk-off single, a walk-off double, whatever. Hell, I'll take a ground rule double. But to lose that way, it's just unacceptable. Like and even that throw from Muncy to Will Smith, I'm going to be honest with you. As I watched the replay of it again here a second ago, I'm not going to put that on Will. I'm going to put that on Max, because Max should have had a better throw to Will, especially since he saw that Randy Arozarena fell. He fell 15, 20 feet away from home plate, and still they were able to get that run in. And I know some people are going to say, well, that's Will's fault and Kelly should have been covering home. That's on Max, because Max needs to make a better throw right there to get it to the catcher so he can make the play. Because if Will has to move away from the plate, he can't tag him out. That's just the bottom line. That's what it is. So, I mean, again, it's just the mistakes on baseball fundamentals that just kind of further add to insult of injury as far as what did we do to piss off the baseball gods is still just unpalpable, because here we are. And now going into tomorrow, it's just one of those things where I'm going to be super curious to see how everyone is feeling. And I've been looking to see if there's any comments coming out of the press conference yet, and I'm not seeing anything yet. But no, apparently Dave Roberts said that he does. Let's see. Let me just read this. Dave Roberts said he takes the blame for sending Pedro Baez back for the 7th inning. He told Baez he was done after the 6th, but changed his mind when the Dodgers took the lead.
And what did we talk about? Outthinking yourself, right? Didn't we say that in our preview? The fear that we have with this team is that the manager is going to outthink themselves.
And here we are.
And here we are now. I mean, the series is tied, and I get it, and I don't want to get too low. But after a game like tonight, it's just really tough. And it just seemed like the Dodgers are down in the series after losing a game like this. I mean, I mean, how do you bounce? How are you going to bounce back? That's what I want to see what the Dodgers do tomorrow.
And I'm curious. This is what I'm kind of just racking my brain about here as I process my couch managerial mind, if you will. I've played baseball long enough and to know that if you're gonna put out a pitcher in a situation like that, there's some sort of leverage, right? Pedro clearly didn't have his stuff. Was he having some success with a few pitches and getting some guys to chase? Yeah, for sure. There was, right? But that's not what you want right now. That's not what you need in that situation in the World Series. You want to be able to get guys out so that way you can move on to, getting your bridge to whoever you think is going to close. And I think that's the other issue is Dave doesn't trust a lot of these guys in this bullpen right now. Because at that point, the dude that comes to mind that we really haven't seen is, I don't know why he didn't go to him there, is Kolarek, right? Kolarek would have made perfect sense to go to there and then get the bridge to Brewstar and then maybe still Kenley, right? Or Joe Kelly, another guy that makes a lot of sense that gets guys to chase that the Rays have also seen in the past. So, I mean, I'm kind of confused as to what he might have seen that made sense in his mind that was like, hey, let's keep Pedro out there for however long. And I mean, 26 pitches for Pedro is a lot. That's a lot of pitches for that dude. And I mean, 15 of them were strikes, but still, the dude went out there and gave up 2 earned runs. He only struck out 2. So that's the thing that, to me, as far as leverage goes, because again, the Dodgers are all about analytics. The analytics don't show to me that that's a high leverage guy in that situation.
No, but here's one thing I mean, if anybody's watching this show, look, if the Dodgers come back and win the World Series, I know we're going super negative tonight. The Dodgers come back and win the World Series, I am going to celebrate like crazy because I am a Dodger fan. But I have heard this quote too many times from people that have won championships. They remember the ones they lost more than the ones they won. So if the Dodgers go ahead and win this World Series, that's going to be great. But I guarantee you, this game tonight is going to stick with me the way Game 5 from the 2017 World Series sticks with me, the way Game 5 and Game 6 of the 1985 NLCS sticks with me. Those losses, especially the brutal ones, just stick with you. And yeah, it just seems like it took a turn. The momentum has definitely taken a turn. It's with the Rays. And it's just frustrating to watch because I just think as good as this Rays pitching has been, the Dodgers have gotten to that pitching, right? And it just feels like the Dodgers should be winning this series. But it is very depressing. Very depressing, and you know what? Times.
And this is a weird hot take, but the reason I'm going to bring it up is because they want to go defense in that situation because you knew who was coming up. Why the hell isn't Austin Barnes in the game as a defensive replacement?
Yeah.
That's not a knock on Will Smith. Will Smith is still young. He's still inexperienced. Has he had a fantastic postseason? Absolutely. Not going to knock that. But Austin Barnes is a better defensive catcher. And in that situation with a short lead going into the ninth, why the hell isn't Austin Barnes in the game? And again, we could sit here and nitpick all sorts of stuff, but I mean, a lot of it is what it comes back to the lying point here is, or the underlying point rather. Dave Roberts outmanaged himself, and the Dodgers beat themselves. And that to me is the worst way that you can lose a game in the series, especially the World Series, because again, it's to your point, you're going to remember those ones that hurt the most when you lost them. This one's going to sting even if the Dodgers come back to win this World Series, because again, it's like I was telling my wife because she's here with me. It's like how do you lose When you've had all this defensive prowess, how do you lose on defensive plays like that? And that's the thing that I for the life of me still don't understand and won't understand. And again, I mean, I feel bad for Julio. I mean, we could go down the list of dudes that we feel bad for. I feel bad for Julio. I feel bad for Walker Buehler, even though he didn't have anything to do with tonight per se. But it's just it's that cataclysmic effect going into tomorrow, where the dude that I feel the worst for is Clayton Kershaw. And that's kind of the other narrative with Clayton. Let's say the Dodgers go on to lose this series, not putting that into existence, but it's doing the what if, right? If they go on to lose this series, the narrative is going to be the Dodgers ruined Clayton Kershaw's career in the postseason. And that's unfair to that guy because that dude is the best left-handed pitcher that we've probably ever seen. We probably won't see another dude like that for a generation. And it's just unfair that tomorrow he has to burden himself with that. Now, granted, he's one of those dudes that's openly talked about being wired for these moments. And I'm hoping that tomorrow he steps up for the moment because, granted, that game one series, that game one outing, that was fantastic. That was a fantastic outing. That's vintage Clayton. I hope that we get vintage Clayton, and I hope that he drops the hammer. I'm not going to predict anything, only because I don't know how this is going to affect the clubhouse morale going into tomorrow. If anything, we're going to learn tomorrow what this team is made of, as far as the character of the team, because we've heard of all these things that have come out about the Mookie Betts effect, the things that Clayton Kershaw does, the intangibles, right? But tomorrow is when we're going to actually see what this team is made of, because they're going to go out essentially playing down a game in the World Series with their horse going, the franchise going out and doing the thing to see if they can come back and rebound to win this thing. And I'm curious to see how they take it, and I'm curious to see how they come out and respond to that. I am glad to see that Dave Roberts has taken some level of accountability, at least on that end. It just sucks that it only took this for something like that to happen, if you will, with kind of the decision making that is made. But I mean, I'm just at a loss for words, honestly. Like we could sit here and nitpick all day. It's just it doesn't offset any of the pain.
Well, and you bring up something, and we talked about it on last night's show, and that is Austin Barnes being behind the plate. Okay, tomorrow is going to be a moot point because Kershaw's pitching and Austin Barnes is Kershaw's catcher. But I think now you cannot ignore the fact that the two best pitched games in this series have been the games that Austin Barnes has caught. And that's game 1 with Kershaw, game 3 with Buehler. Okay. If the Dodgers end up winning the game tomorrow, in game 6 and 7, if it goes to 7, you have to, I think, have Austin Barnes behind the plate now. Because
Agreed.
You cannot ignore this trend. For whatever reason, it seems the pitchers are more effective throwing to Barnes than they are to Will Smith. And that is something that I hope they are looking at and strongly considering, because you're going to have that day off, okay, between games 5 and 6. So it's not like Barnes is going to catch 4 days in a row, okay? At most, with Barnes, he'll have the day off, and if necessary, he might catch 2 days in a row. But that is something I think that needs to be considered, because I still cannot get over the fact that Baez was brought in was because of his changeup, and he threw that changeup in to get those 2 strikes. For them to then just go ahead and go to the fastball, you just have to scratch your head and who made that call? Who made that call? Was Baez just not comfortable? I mean, isn't the rule if they can't hit a pitch, you keep throwing that pitch until they prove to you they can hit it?
So, I mean, having been a pitcher myself, but it's one of those things where also the catcher is the general, right? And if the general is asking me to, go outside with the changeup and I'm not feeling my changeup, I can shake it off and say no, right? And try to come back with something else. The thing is some of those guys, they in some clubhouses, they're given autonomy. If that catcher is given that level of autonomy when they go in with their pitching plan, then that's just is what it is, right? The other part to that, though, is how comfortable is the catcher being kind of put in that situation with a veteran pitcher, right? Will Smith is still young. He's only going to get better defensively. I'm not knocking his defense yet because he's still growing and developing as a player. He's just doing it on the biggest of stages, right? So we're nitpicking. But regardless, I didn't see Pedro shake a whole lot of pitches off. He was pretty, he was sticking to the plan, and that's what it seems like to me. Is Pryor and Roberts beforehand said if this situation arises, this is what we're going to do. And again, it comes back to they're out managing themselves, they're out thinking themselves. Because if and you would have been able to tell, Baez is been around enough to be able to make the call that no, I'm not going to go fastball here. I'm not going to hang a fastball here. I'm going to go change up in a way. I'm going to go change up back, inside, glove side, whatever. That wasn't happening. So that's what tells me that that's what the plan was, and that's why it's further why I think Dave is coming out and saying what he's saying, because that was the plan in that situation. Unfortunately, the gamble didn't pay off, right? They essentially, from kind of, if that's the case, me assuming, they just thought because Baez can throw 95, 96, 97, that they were just going to blow past these guys. And you can't do that. With these guys, you just can't do that. You can't do that. And tonight is proof because 2 home runs.
And it seems like that's the only pitch the Rays can hit.
Yeah. So that's the part of me that doesn't understand why not go some breaking ball in some kind, and I don't get it. But it's something funny though. It's something that we mentioned Game 5 of 17. I was thinking of a couple other like wild like series things. The Mets Braves 19 innings was bananas baseball. That was preposterous. Obviously the 13-12 Game 5 of the 2017 series, which obviously still a dagger in all of our hearts for a litany of reasons. 162 a couple years ago for the Rays. That was an insane game. And the funny thing is they all had some, or also Game 7 of the 2016 World Series, if we don't forget that either, with all the craziness going on there. And I don't like Cubs fans. I that's one fan base I'm not a huge fan base of. But I mean, that's one of those like that's the baseball we all love, right? But until your team is in the moment getting kicked in the dick, then you're here having a therapy session on the internet, and it's the worst. But I mean, again, it's one of those things where Game 5 of the ALDS is another thing in '99 that I was thinking about too. Anyway, there's so many things that all of them happen, but none of them have a walk-off error. None of them have a walk-off error, and that's what has me the most pissed, because this team is too good to make those sorts of dumb mistakes, especially with the game on the line.
Well, there is one walk-off error, a very famous walk-off error.
Oh, well, yeah.
Buckner.
Buckner. But
Buckner.
The rich irony, though, of that is it's the curse of the Bambino. So I mean, that's like it's. I just can't. But oh man, I'm just pissed.
Here's the thing about the Buckner. Every Red Sox fan I talked to before they won the World Series, none of them, blamed Buckner for that error.
No, that wasn't Buckner's fault. That wasn't his fault.
The majority of them said Buckner shouldn't even have been out there because he had the bad knees, but McNamara wanted him on the field to celebrate. But every single one of those Red Sox fans that I talked to blamed Rich Gedman for the pass ball. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that it is never one person's fault. And that's why we're focusing on different plays. We're focusing on Roberts. But this, and you mentioned it, you said it beautifully, this was a team loss. This was a team failure. They just combusted. And it's hard to see because, again, I go back to the Dodger fans. The Dodger fans deserve better. They have been supporting this team regardless of how bad this team is. There's 3 million fans in that stadium, right? We survived McCourt. We stick with this team. And I get it. The players aren't out there trying to lose. I get that. But now we're starting to talk about something that's bigger than us. Because we always seem to just rip victory from the jaws of defeat.
No, it's true. And what's funny is I wasn't going to join tonight, but because of the cataclysmic failure, if you will, of what happened in this game 4. It was one of those where it's like, yeah, we got to do it. And you know what? And to the voice in the sky, Roger, like you said, we survived McCourt, and a huge bearing of that was the founder of this blog, Roger Arrieta, right?
That's
That
right.
got us to this point where we have Guggenheim running the show, and he's humbly, and we've humbly accepted as well. Asked us to be on this platform to run this therapy session on the internet tonight, and that's one of the reasons why as you said, this is bigger than us as a fan base. This is bigger than even the game of baseball, if you will, because it's one of those things too going into tomorrow where it's going to be the game of the life for a lot of these players. It's going to be a potential career defining thing, right? And I for the sake of not only just baseball, but for the sake of this franchise, I hope Clayton Kershaw goes out there and drops the fucking hammer. I hope that he pitches the start of his life. And it's one of those where also you can't question anything that Clayton Kershaw is anymore because he went out and did his part. Because Walker Buehler has done his part. Clayton Kershaw did his part in game 1. Now I think and he's on regular rest. Let's not forget, Clayton's on regular rest. The back is firing on all cylinders. And if there's anything that we know that's going to fire up Clayton, is this, because I hope that he looks at it like we're not down, we're just tied, and I have to go out there and do the thing. As for the rest of these guys, some of them might take it, like I said, as far as it's we're down in the series, and it's still concerning, right? But the series isn't over. We have to give the Rays all the credit in the world because they went out and executed and capitalized on the Dodgers' mistakes. And again, I have said it from the beginning of our preview show to now. These Rays are legit. I don't give a damn what the talking heads say about the stats that they have in the regular season to now, the deficit in hitting, the team batting average, et cetera, et cetera. In the World Series, if I'm honest with you, all of that goes out the window because there's been other underdog teams that have come out and proven everyone wrong. One of those teams that comes to mind is the Toronto Blue Jays. When the Toronto Blue Jays forced it to Game 7 and went out and did the thing on the home run and walked it off, no one expected the Blue Jays to win that series. The Minnesota Twins with Kirby Puckett, no one expected them to win that damn series. So, I mean, and here we are. Even that recent series with the Indians and the Cubs, everyone thought the Indians had that series in the bag too. Here we are. So it's one of those things where if you go out there and you execute, you're going to pull it off, right? And the Rays went out and just executed tonight, and they were able to tie it up. And all you can do is, tip your cap to the other side and give all the credit in the world to Kevin Cash because he simply outmanaged Dave Roberts tonight.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add about Kevin Cash, he changed his lineup today. And I think putting Randy Arozarena at the number 2 spot was huge. And yeah, and I think Roger called it also during the game, was we cannot give that guy anything to hit from this point on. I mean, you obviously, I mean, he's killing us, and it's today. I mean, if you thought Dodger Twitter was bad tonight, can you imagine how bad it's going to get if we're in the 6th inning tomorrow night's game and Kershaw's in trouble and Roberts doesn't do anything? I mean, it is just the momentum has completely swung. And, I know a lot of Dodger fans, unless you're just one of those totally optimistic and you never say anything bad about the team. If you're one of those fans, God bless you. I wish I could be more like you guys, but I'm just not one of those fans. But after that game lost today, if I'm being honest, there was a lot of Dodger fans that I think thought the same thing as I did. We just lost the series. And we're going to go back to this game and point it. As I said, I hope I am wrong. I will celebrate like crazy if they win the World Series. But maybe this is the reason why they are major leaguers and they're playing tomorrow and I'm not, because they're able to shake these things off and go back out there tomorrow and play like new. But I am very curious to see, because how is that bullpen going to react knowing that your manager doesn't trust you? And who are you going to go again? I mean, we're completely beating it into the bush, but it's the same questions that we talked about in the NLCS. Who's going to pitch the 9th?
What I'm also curious to see is it's obvious that you can't trust Gonsolin or May. So who the hell starts if you force Game 7? or rather when it goes to 7, who the hell is going to go in 7?
So, I mean, it would be Buehler, but are you saying that you got to go Buehler game 6?
If you're trying to drop the hammer, because I can't.
I mean, if it's an elimination game, if the Rays win tomorrow, you're down 3-2. You have to come back with Buehler. So, what would that be? 2 days rest?
It'd be 2 days rest. Because the thing is
or 3 days because of the off day.
Oh, the off day. I keep forgetting about the off day. Here's the thing: you don't trust your bullpen. You technically, I mean, you're not going to throw Urias out there. So, and you obviously Kershaw just threw. You don't trust Maynard Gonsolin. Who are you going to go with? Alex Wood in a game clinching situation? I don't know if I go Alex Wood. If it was, hey, you know what? We're tied 2-2. Okay, maybe I would consider that, right? Have him be an opener, if you will, but not in the World Series.
But how did we get into this situation? We went from the beginning of the year having all this pitching depth to now we are running on fumes in the playoffs.
It's one of those things where there was just the lack of I don't even want to say accountability. That's not even the right word. Just like the effectiveness, if you will, of this bullpen going from one of the best, if not the best, to now. And never in a million years did we think that we would have a hole even with Kenley Jansen. And that's one of those things where I kind of want to simmer on it overnight because I'm kind of curious to see what happens tomorrow. Because if Kershaw comes out and throws 7 innings, which he's fully capable of doing, and makes it so maybe Brusdar Graterol or Joe Kelly make an appearance and they're able to wrap it up with a lead, because obviously we saw that this Dodgers offense can get it going. But the other part of that is Mookie Betts needs to get it going. Cody Bellinger, needs to get something going, something to that degree, right? Because if they can get all of those bats going, then there's no reason that they should lose. And again, even tonight, they threw up a 7 spot.
Yeah.
And here we are, right? So, I mean, it's one of those things where the offense has, for the most part, been doing the thing, but the pitching hasn't been executing, aside from Clayton and Walker in this series, and that's concerning. So, that's the thing that I'm ultimately afraid of is this. If this goes, I said this to you off air, if this goes to a Game 7 situation, I don't like it because it benefits the Rays because of the pitching situation that the Dodgers have put themselves in with how they've had to use their bullpen throughout this postseason, and then now with the bullpen questions. And that's, for me, worst case scenario is this series going Game 7 because of that.
Right.
It's painful. I mean, it's painful and it sucks. And but I mean, like you said, if you thought Dodger Twitter was bad then, wait until if something, and you know what? And like I said, who I feel the worst for, because he's such a good dude and he's all in just his resume. I feel bad for Clayton Kershaw, man. I just feel so bad for him because if there's anyone that doesn't deserve to be in that situation, it's Clayton Kershaw. And I know that people are going to say, oh, well, because of the ghosts of postseason past. 2017 to me goes out the damn window because we now know what happened.
Right.
And that's why I think this is kind of his redemption tour, if you will. And again, Clayton Kershaw as a person, Clayton Kershaw off the field, you can't knock the guy for anything. Even on the field, the dude has done everything except one thing. He hasn't been able to get that ring. And unfortunately, a lot of it is because of the Dodgers getting in their own damn way. And this is proof tonight. They got in their own damn way. They beat themselves. The Dodgers beat the Dodgers. There's a famous quote from Vince McMahon after the Montreal screw job with Bret Hart. Bret didn't screw Bret.
I didn't screw Bret. Bret screwed himself.
Bret screwed Bret. Yeah. So and that's kind of where we're at now, right? Where the Dodgers have screwed themselves. The Rays didn't screw us. The Dodgers screwed themselves. And I hope that you and I are looking back on this conversation and this game 4 days from now, celebrating, pouring champagne on each other, virtually wearing goggles and celebrating and crying. But if we look at it on the other side, losing, I hope that this is not the reason why we are in this situation, and it's something else that happens in the next 3 games that gets us there. But I mean, it's pain. It's pain. But I mean, if to Tim McCarver, whoever wins 4 games first wins the World Series, and that's what the Dodgers have to remember.
That's true. I mean, like Vin Scully says, when have the Dodgers made anything easy? And tonight was just a perfect example of that.
No, you're right. And on that note, we're gonna wrap this. I'm not even gonna do the whole like who do you think will be the MVP. I think tomorrow. My Tim McCarver take is if the Dodgers come out and do this again, we don't deserve to win,
Yeah.
and that's just the end all be all. But I hope that this lights a fire under their ass and lets kind of reminds them, like I've said before, some of these guys just need to remember that they're just too good to make these fundamental mistakes. And again, we've how often have we talked about Chris Taylor's defensive prowess?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
last dude that I expected to make an error like that.
I mean, it's just like the minute that hit, that fluke hit, and after one out, right? That fluke hit, you just knew something was going to go wrong. I just had this feeling the whole game because of the back and forth element and because they had their last at bats. It seems like it's always, the team with the last at bat. It was just, I'm still trying to recover. The anger has subsided now, and now the deep depression is kicking in, and I'm just, I can't tell you the number of texts I got as we got started the show. Everybody just asking me if I'm okay, and I'm thankful I have this show to be my therapy, but it's just sometimes it's too much to take how this team finds new ways to just break its fans' hearts.
And we're going to end this show with this quote from Dave Roberts. It's the full quote on what I just read to you earlier and what he said. He says, quote, "I take blame for that because we were down. I told him he was finished, so to ask him to go back out, I shouldn't have said that. I should have kept him burning. Then he gave up the home run to Kiermaier." So that he's aware of what's going on. And again, he outmanaged himself, and here we are. So I hope that going into tomorrow, we don't see that same mistake again, because if that happens, oh man. I mean, I already knew that after the World Series, the things we're going to keep doing with this blog, and big thanks to Roger for letting us do it. It was going to be interesting because of how this offseason is going to be interesting. Not to get too grim, but if these Dodgers do lose the World Series, it's going to be an even more interesting offseason, if I'm honest with you. But I hope that we don't get to that point because, like I said, I hope that 4 days from now, 3 days from now, whenever the hell, I don't even know what day it is. I don't even know. But whenever that is, that we're just flowing Martinellis and Kristoff and all that stuff with goggles on the internet celebrating the first series since 1988.
Exactly.
And on that note, we're going to end it. For myself, Juan, and Roger, the voice in the sky here at Dodgers Beat. Please follow us. Our Twitter handles are below. And follow this blog. Obviously, if you're here watching, as I always say, the Tim McCarver Take, you probably already follow us. But get some sleep, get some rest. Don't dwell too hard because I'm going to be in pain until at least tomorrow, no matter what. And I know Juan is. And if you have to go outside, like we always say, please keep your distance, stay safe, wear your mask. And the reason you want to stay safe so we can watch all 7 of these games and talk together. And yes, I said 7. Even though that's my worst case scenario, I'm still going 7 at this point. It has changed from 6 to 7 for various reasons, but here we are. But until tomorrow, we will talk to you then. Stay safe. We'll talk to you there.